Hello and welcome to our tutorials on closures in JavaScript. A closure is a function that has access to the variables in its parent scope, even after the parent function has completed execution. Let's understand through an example. Let's create a function makeCounter. Inside this one, let's create a variable count and assign a value of 0. Then return a function from here. But we can also return a value of count, but this time I am going to return the value of count with incrementation. Now how I am going to call this makeCounter? So let's call this function makeCounter and assign it in a variable. Counter equals to makeCounter. So my counter here is a function, right? My counter here is a function which is being returned by makeCounter. And let's try to print this counter thing. Okay, so let's try to call this function console.log, and I'm going to call counter here. And let's call it for multiple times. So let's copy this one, paste multiple times. Okay. Let's first understand this one. So we have a makeCounter, then we created a variable called count. Inside makeCounter, we are returning a new function with this count variable, but we are incrementing this count. Okay. And at this point, we are actually calling, so we have called the makeCounter function here, which returns the new function, right? So this counter is nothing but this new function, and then we are calling this counter function 3 times. Let's see the output first. So I'm going to call my JavaScript file using Node.js environment. As you can see that at first it prints 0, then 1, and then 2. In this example, the makeCounter function returns an inner function, which is assigned to the variable counter. And the inner function has access to the count variable, even though the parent function has completed execution. Each time the inner function is called, it returns the current value of the count and then incremented by 1. I hope you understand this one. Closures are often used in JavaScript to maintain the state of a function across multiple calls, or to create private variables that can only be accessed by the inner function. Here is an example where the closure is used to create a private variable. So we are going to modify this function, but this time we are going to use the concept of private variables. So I'm going to copy this whole code and let's create one more file called private.js, and let me paste the whole code. And this time, here let's have this variable count, but instead of returning this function, we will return something like this. Okay, so we are going to return an object. Okay, and we can, inside this object, we can have 2 functions here. Increment function, which actually increments this count variable, and then we can have a getCount function, which actually just returns the value of count. Okay, done. And the same thing is like the below thing is almost same. So we have called this makeCounter, which returns an object, and this time to increment, okay, we can call counter.increment, and then again we can call counter.increment. So twice we have incremented, and this time, so let's remove these 2 lines, and we just want to print the value of counter.getCount. Okay, so let's run this code. I will write node, and then I will write private.js. Okay, so it prints 2. In this example, the variable count is private variable, and that can only be accessed by increment and get count function. This provides a way to maintain state across multiple calls without exposing the state variable to the global scope. It means right now no one can change the count variable except increment function and get count function. It is also important to keep in mind that closure in JavaScript is an important concept to understand when working with function, and it's a powerful feature that allows you to create a function that has a state. That's it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching.